Sorry, everybody. Better late than never. We are having technical difficulties on my end. Just like the 49ers season, things have completely fell apart on my end. But we're here. We're going to try to right this ship. Um, Special kind of Friday recap edition after yesterday's game and what transpired. Just all the crazy stuff that's happened. Good amount to talk about. I got like 5 topics, but they each could take like a whole hour to talk about. So before we do that, Al, how are you feeling after yesterday, having gotten a chance to kind of uh, take it all in and kind of like where's your mind after kind of watching what happened, the game itself, and then the separate drama with Devondre Campbell?
The game itself, the first half was gross, right? 3-3. The rain was coming down, I think, harder than at least me looking at the forecast out in Santa Clara. And I think it probably took the announcers and the players by surprise too. The Rams were prepared with, bringing all their cleats in and doing stuff. Not like that helped them out in the first half. Offense definitely could have done more in the second half. Stafford in the running game, much more effective, much more efficient. I mean, they mustered 3 field goals to the Niners 1 field goal. Nobody could get into the end zone. I think ultimately what this game did was it just pulled the Band-Aid off quickly for the players, for us as fans. Yes, they were technically still alive for the division, maybe a wild card if the Commanders crapped all over themselves, but it was a steep uphill climb. It was, they're in it until they're not. I kept saying it, on my show as well. And that's just the mathematical fact of it. Now they have a less than 0.1% chance or whatever. So the season's over from a playoff standpoint. Shanahan knows it. The players know it. I know we'll get into the Devondre Campbell stuff, but at least the blue balls is over, right? Like they were leading us along. Even if they won all 4 games, it wouldn't have guaranteed them making the playoffs. At least now we know the Band-Aid's off. And I'm excited for the next 3 games just to see if any young players get a little bit of a playing time to see if it's going to be a little bit more of a look ahead to 2025 and knowing that this team's going to look different next year and it needs to get younger, it needs to get faster, it needs to get cheaper in some areas, and it will. So I'm still excited about the last 3 games. It's stress-free Niner watching. I think we all deserve that.
And there's so many ways I want to attack what happened yesterday. We could talk about the Brock situation and, some honest thoughts I have. I might not be, jumping off the Titanic, into the cold water to accept my fate as far as the season goes. But there's definitely some things that are concerning, and they're honest. I think there's a little bit of an overreaction after games, negative and positive.
Yeah.
Everybody was really crazy about the Bears game last week and how the Niners looked great. They're back, yada, yada, yada. And then after yesterday, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. We could attack Devondre Campbell quitting on the team and leaving the field, which is something I don't think I've ever seen happen in a 49er game, at least, ever in my life. There's positives. Again, we're going to touch on this, but there's positives. Like, I think our secondary is actually really good. And I think there's some hope going forward that like this defense can kind of return to form if just a few pieces return and then you add some pieces on top of it. It's amazing how different things looked yesterday with having Talanoa Funga and Dre Greenlaw on the field for the short time they all played together. It's a little bit of a throwback. And this is against a team that scored 44 points last week. So it was kind of a nice feeling overall with that little piece. But there's just so much to digest and talk about. Let's start with the Devondre Campbell situation. So essentially he did not want to go back in when asked to go back in, and then he essentially quit and left the field. Security followed him into the locker room, and I would assume players did not run into him. He had to have left. Whether he left his locker full or he just got changed, he just bounced. Because I don't know about you, Al, but if I was in the professional football and that happened, there would have been some hands probably would have been thrown in that locker room. I could guarantee you, just based on guys who have sacrificed, people, losing people in their family or children losing their life and they're still there. Even Trent Williams, he's in the stadium, he's in the press box, but he's there. Javarius Ward on the field again
Yep.
24 after the death of his daughter. And then you got, Ricky Pearsall, who was shot in the chest and again made his way back onto the field. Dre Greenlaw injured his Achilles in the Super Bowl, find a way to get back on the field. And then there's Devondre Campbell.
Everything that's been said on other, media outlets, TV, Twitter, radio, whatever, it's all been said. It's embarrassing. Kyle didn't even want to address him by name. The day after press conference, Kittle had strong words for him. Kittle was getting aggravated the more people were asking about him. At the end of the game, Travarius Ward was aggravated. Yeah, I think there could have been some heated physicality if Campbell was in that locker room or decided to stick around. He didn't give anybody any reason why. Kyle didn't send him to the locker room. I don't know if the defensive coordinator did or his linebackers coach. He went on his own volition. It's such a bad look. At least we didn't know what happened until after the game. I mean, I watched the whole game unless I missed it. I didn't know what happened. Even when Greenlaw was hurt or his knee was bothering him, that's what the official company line is. And they were using like that Theragun on his calf and he was kind of sitting there. D Winters went in, then DFF went in after Winters got banged up a little bit. There was no mention of DeAndre Campbell at all until after the game. And that it's such weak sauce for all the reasons that you mentioned. And he knew he was the stopgap for Greenlaw, right? He knew he was only here because Greenlaw was hurt. When Greenlaw's healthy, he goes back to the bench. I'm sure this wasn't sprung on him, right? That now that Greenlaw's back, he's not going to be playing. I don't know if he took exception to the fact when Warner came out for a play or two when he got banged up, that weird when he got twisted on his knee. I think Winters went in or another linebacker and it wasn't Campbell. And then later on in the game, when a linebacker had to come in, it was Winters and not Campbell. So I don't know if he felt slighted that as the veteran or as a veteran, he did not get the call in those two instances. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care if he felt like he didn't even want to play going into the game because he knew Greenlaw was going to suit up. What did you think the whole situation was? Why you were here to begin with, man? It's weak. He's going to, and now we're working on the nomenclature per Kyle about the semantics of how to get his ass off the team. I mean, you just can't, I mean, it's disciplinary reason, right? He's being cut, conduct detrimental to the team, gone. And I guess they can do that, on Tuesday, maybe officially.
Yeah. I had a lot of feelings after yesterday's game. I was like you, I was kind of caught up in the whole Greenlaw thing of him playing and, got caught up in the emotion of like, wow, he kind of looked like the 2023 Niners on defense, at least
the energy was
energy was amazing. But like you said, I mean, when you really kind of break it all down, we weren't going to make the playoffs still. Like it just wasn't going to happen. Especially when you look, if you look at the standings, they kept flashing them on screen and I just started being like, okay, this is all great and everything. This is like awesome sauce. We're seeing him. He's on the field. Hufanga is on the field. The Niners, they look like a little bit of like a, just a rebirth a little bit in week 15, or 16, I forget. Anyways, and then when when the game ended, of course, all that went away. But hearing this after the game, man, there was some strong words from the media calling him almost a Judas, like a person who's on the inside of the team who's what's the word? Subterfuge. I'm trying to think of the word, but like pretty much like an enemy within the ranks of the team. That's essentially what a lot of people call them because of what he did. Man, this season. Go ahead.
His play up until the last 4 games. I mean, he wasn't winning any fans in the media, in the faithful, and maybe even not in the locker room. And Kyle was asked again today about how does he think he played. Said started off slow, had some up and downs, started playing better as of late as he got more comfortable into the defense, which made sense. He wasn't a liability the past month, but now he's gone, and let's go back to the whole Greenlaw thing. If it was a knee irritation issue, I don't know how much the calf and the Achilles are connected to that because one report, and it's if it's social media, you take it with a grain of salt, was Achilles fatigue. I saw,
I seen that.
so I mean, something in the lower extremities, I'm sure related to the Achilles or maybe the conditioning or whatnot. But again, why does this team have no mercy when it comes to throwing players back out on the field coming off of major injury? He played 30 of 64 snaps, roughly half the game, came out in the third quarter. If you're going to tell me Greenlaw is going to play 30, probably, listen, I'm no coach, whatever. I probably would have played him 20 to 25 snaps, right? Sprinkle him in. Make sure he gets a couple, 4, 5, 6 snaps per quarter. Ease him back in. Maybe he's your early down linebacker. You bring in Winters or Campbell on late downs or vice versa, whatever. But they threw him out there from the jump as if it was like, it's a normal week 14 game. No, same with McCaffrey, same with Debo coming off of pneumonia.
Yep.
We are not there. We are not doctors. We're not talking to the doctors. We have no idea what the rehab looks like or what they look like on field. But at least in McCaffrey and Greenlaw's case, they had what? McCaffrey had 2 practices in pads before they threw him out there for 90% of his snaps. Greenlaw was activated for, I guess, 2 weeks ago and just kind of did a walkthrough and you can't simulate game stuff in practice. Like there's no reason. I mean, with McCaffrey, there was every reason in the world to ease him in. Every reason in the world. Like he's your offensive centerpiece. And Greenlaw, I guess maybe they're thinking, he's probably gone after next year anyway. Let's run him into the ground and see how much energy he can give our defense. I don't understand the thought process. For them, it's if you're healthy enough to play, you're going to play. I get it. But you could be a little conservative. Holy cow.
Yeah, this whole balls deep approach where as soon as somebody's able to be clear to be healthy, it's like we go back to as if they never left.
Yeah.
I noticed that too with Greenlaw. I noticed he was on the field quite a bit, which scared me. It scared me for him to play, Al.
Oh yeah.
He got hurt in February. It's December. I wouldn't have won. It was like I said, we got caught up in it for a second, and it was like, oh man, this feels great. But in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I really hope that they don't hurt this guy long term. And
there very well might have been there might have been a difference in the run defense in the first half and second half. Second half, he's out. Rams ran the ball much better. First half he was in, but first half was also raining moderately and it was a wetter field and it was a mudder. So I don't know how much those two things correlate together, but there was no word about anything related to Greenlaw while he was out in the second half. They kept showing him, right? I think Haley Hartung was like, oh, no word from the Niners. He's okay. It's like, well, why isn't he playing?
Why is he in?
Like,
why is he in the game?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was obviously something, but yeah.
I think anybody holds Kyle or John's feet to the fire when it comes to how they take care of guys once they come back from injury. Like, whose idea was it for the amount of snaps that he was playing? Like, Kyle's gonna, coach speak. Kyle's gonna answer it, but he's not really gonna answer it, and nothing's really gonna come out of it. Like the question, I would love to know whose thought was it behind it. Linebackers coach, like who made the choice to just say we're gonna keep putting you back out there every single drive. To the point where, the wheels fell off essentially on him in the third quarter, and which was sad because it's like, could this be the last time we see him on the field? I'm starting to think that's not the case. I think he will be back next year, Al. Like, I just have a sneaky feeling.
It's funny. We're talking about it as if he retore his Achilles, right? And he didn't. He just like something else, irritation. He's considered day-to-day, and he's got 9 weeks to heal. So is Winters is day-to-day. Jair Brown, I think it was his groin or something. He's day-to-day as well. So, we're talking as if there's some major setback, but it just is. I mean, unless the approach, even with McCaffrey going into he came back against Tampa, and I forget what the record was at that point. It wasn't good, obviously. But if that approach has been all hands on deck, you're healthy, you're coming back, we're playing, we need you stars to play as much as possible to make some sort of a pseudo run. But I don't even think, I mean, is it different if the Niners are 8-2 when McCaffrey comes back? I don't know. I don't know. And we'll never know the answer to that. But the way that this team doesn't seem like it can shake the injury bug other than last year. It's funny, the 2 years where they had their quarterback play every single game and not get injured was 2 Super Bowl years. Super Bowl appearances anyway. Brock just missed 1 game, but a whole lot else went wrong from the injury standpoint. Even something like Ayuk, Ayuk's injury, that wasn't because he held out. That wasn't because he was conditioned. He just got hit really bad in the leg. No amount of conditioning is going to save that leg.
No.
It's just a shame, but listen, from your lips to God's ears, hopefully Greenlaw does come back. There's a different energy with Warner, with the defense. I think it'll be great. I'm very dubious. I'm very skeptical. So much has to be ironed out between now and beginning of free agency.
Yeah, I mean, they have some good young linebackers in D winners, Tatum Bethune, maybe even the one guy, I forget his name, got injured preseason. Curtis Robinson, he looked promising.
Mm-hmm.
Niners need to, like Peter Parker said, you got to let some of these young guys play, man. Now that the season's all but over, I know they say it's day to day with Greenlaw, but I mean, I really don't want to see him back on the field till next year. Hopefully with the 49ers. It was such a weird feeling last night because I went through all the gambit of emotions watching that game, from accepting things to just relaxing and watching the game, knowing, that doesn't really, they're not going to make the playoffs, or it's going to take a miracle winning 4 games plus a bunch of help, to dread because he left the game and he was did not return, to relief a little bit that maybe it's not as big of a deal as we're thinking about, and then to back to dread, knowing that this could be his last time on the field with the 49ers. So I'm like all over the field on that one. That's one of many things that I've been kind of, you try not to over obsess about football when you kind of compare it to real life. I tend to try to, put things out of my mind, but it was just, a lot of stuff's coming back today when I think about the season. Start thinking about Brock getting paid. There was some things that were said about him after the game that, are true in some aspects. And, those hard conversations have to be had by us fans and media alike. And it's right now, to me, everything's all kind of fair game with the Brock Purdy stuff. Now, I'm not of the mindset that he just needs to be let go and Kyle needs to be fired and we just need to reboot this whole thing. I am not in that mindset. I'm trying to be more glass half full with that, but you add all that plus the Greenlaw situation, plus the Devondre Campbell situation, plus the Debo situation, and there's a big giant crap sandwich that we kind of got served last night after that game. I don't know. Do you want to kind of go right into the Purdy stuff?
Yeah, I think. Well, last night was more than just a Purdy problem. Like the offense was just disjointed. Nothing was working. Again, the first half was a wash. Haha. Nobody did anything in the first half, right? Matthew Stafford gift wrapped 2 interceptions to San Francisco that were not caught. You want to give Hufanga a pass because he's got a club on his hand? Sure. You want to give Demo a pass? The ball was right here, went through his hands, buzzed his helmet in the first quarter. That could have set the Niners up in plus territory on the first 2 drives that wound up being Rams punts. And the Niners did nothing with those drives because they punted it back also. And then there was one later on where Hufanga down the sideline, Ward jumps, knocks it off. Hufanga does some ill-timed jump toward and under jumps the ball. I don't even know how to describe it. Whereas if he just stood where he was and backpedaled, he probably would have easily caught it and stayed in bounds, or it would have been very close. So Stafford's going to get a pass for not throwing any interceptions, but he should have thrown at least 1, probably 2, and the potential for 3. But it makes everybody, in a 12-6 game, Kyle's a moron, but Sean McVay's a master. Couldn't put a touchdown up on the Niners, put 40 plus up on the Bills. Sean McVay is going to get a pass in terms of like what that offense looked like. They adapted better in the drier weather in the second half between Williams and Stafford was more efficient. And there was, I think, some of the fatigue setting in on the defense. 3 straight field goal drives in the fourth quarter. 2 of the 3 were lengthy drives. One that basically ended the game when it was 9-6. They just ran the clock out, got first downs, took it under 15 and kicked the field goal to win it. or took it under or close to 20. So it's more than a Brock problem. The Bears defense is so much better than the Rams, so much better than the Rams, and they had their way with them. And for whatever reason, both defenses showed up, both offenses, not really. And fans, I think, if any fans are listening that think that there's a hard conversation to be had about Brock in the offseason, no, there's not.
No, there
He's
really
the
isn't.
franchise quarterback. He's getting paid. He shouldn't get over 60. If the if the Niners offer him 45 and Brock wants 61, you meet in the middle at 52, 53, sign him, however much guaranteed he gets, and you move forward, and I'm happy. And I know a lot of the fans won't be, or the ones that want attention and clicks and engagement and blow Grant Cohn and all that stuff. There is no hard conversation to be had about Brock Purdy in the offseason at all.
What do you make of all the overreaction? You know, the one way or the other. We play really good in a game, and everybody's like, we're back. Brock looked great. See, he's okay. And this guy's great. And then maybe things are not as bad too. Oh man, the worst team. Everything's bad. Got it all. Brock sucks. I told you he's not elite. See, all you people say he's elite. He's not elite. And then the conversation is whoever said he was elite. Like whoever said he was of the top, 4 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL that kind of separate themselves from the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's ever said that. I am one of those people who have made various times on social media or on YouTube, like there's very few elite quarterbacks that are in the NFL, and as a franchise, some never get one. We happen to have 2 in our lifetime, me and you, Steve Young, Joe Montana. There is plenty of teams that make it to the Super Bowl who have a serviceable to a slightly above average quarterback who build their roster around their quarterback and find a way to win Super Bowls. The Eagles in 2017. You could talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at one time. There's been other teams, various teams. Think about even the Redskins at one point. They won a Super Bowl with Doug Williams and Mark Rippon. Okay. Like neither of those guys would you consider all-time great elite quarterbacks. And it is doable in this day and age. It just I think a lot of people, I don't know if it's like I can't say the word, what inferiority complex where you look down at yourself and you're like, damn, he's not like the other guys, it's like you're almost embarrassed as a fan to admit that, you're down with Brock Purdy. So instead of, understanding that things are what they are, you sit there and bash him and, critique his game, make fun of his size, his hand size, all this other stuff. Oh, he went to Iowa State, all this stuff. And then when we were winning, none of that stuff was being said. None of that stuff was being talked about. All those things were quiet. And this fan base, there's some people, and you know who I'm talking about, who tweet and tweet and tweet while they're at games and after games. And I mean, they're tweeting all the time. And it's almost to the point of where you just want to take their phone and throw it in the ocean or something. Like nothing is ever as good as it is.
Right.
And nothing is ever as bad as we think it is. It's somewhere in the middle. That's where the truth always seems to lie. And I think this team is not bereft of talent. This has just been a really down injury plagued year. Brock, could you say he had they call it a sophomore slump? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. But the whole team was down this year. It wasn't just Brock Purdy. The offensive line play was horrible. Wide receiver play has been, average at best. Guys don't get open. There's no speed on this 49er receiving core. Your 2 best players, probably, I know Juwan Jennings runs a 4.7 40, maybe. And your best guy, Kittle, I mean, he's an aging tight end. There's nobody else that's really stepped up on this team in that receiving room since Brandon Ayuk went down. I'm kind of in the middle with Brock. I can see some of the things that people say about him. Like for instance, last night, that throw was a forced throw. He got hit as he threw, and he had a wide open man for a check down right over the middle,
Taylor right there,
right in front of him. But instead, he wanted to play hero ball, and it's something he's been doing a lot more this year. I don't know if he's feeling pressure to do it because of other people not stepping up, namely Deebo Samuel. And so they think that they have to put the team on their shoulders. And, Brock's he's not that guy. And that's okay to admit that he's not that guy. He's not Mahomes. He's not, all these other guys that whatever, we're all over, Allen for the Bills, all that. So I don't know, man. I understand some of the criticism. I'm okay to say that, yeah, he's not an elite quarterback. Never said he was.
Mhm.
But like we talked about before, there's teams that have won championships with a really good roster around a slightly above average quarterback, and then they made it work. And I think that's how the 49ers got to approach this thing. Um, they got to build the team around him and, go from there. This whole thing where you have to reset your quarterback room every 2 years because a guy doesn't look like, you know, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen I think it's foolhardy. And I think it's just overreaction by fans who just for some reason think that because their quarterback doesn't look like a guy or doesn't play like a guy that they have to replace him. I don't know. I'm just
The narrative about everything about Brock is so lazy. If the first tier of quarterbacks are say 7, he's in the next tier. He's 8 to 13, 14. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a top. I mean, you could call him a top 15, top 16 quarterback, but I think that pushes him down to where he really probably is in like the 9, 10, 11 range. If people are telling me you can't win with the top 10 quarterback, top 9 to 11 quarterback, then I don't know what you're looking for. And I think everybody needs to remember, as gifted as Josh Allen is, the Bills as a team got so much better when they took the ball out of his hands and gave it to James Cook. The Bills have become a better team when they're a running team. Can Josh Allen take over a game given his physical gifts and stuff? Yes. And has he cut down on the interceptions and fumbles? Yes. But the Bills are a more balanced offense under offensive coordinator Joe Brady than they've ever been. Lamar Jackson's going to put up a phenomenal regular season. He's going to crap out in the playoffs. That's just his MO. You know that they're going to do it. Patrick Mahomes, by his standards, is having a very down year. A little bit better lately since he's gotten DeAndre Hopkins. And Matthew Stafford was garbage before a Kupp and Nakua and has turned it on lately. This was the first game in the past 4 or 5 games as he hasn't thrown a touchdown. He's been on fire. Everybody understands Brock's limitations. He doesn't have a weak arm. He has an average arm. It's not everything is hyperbole. He sucks. Cut him. Get rid of him. Let's draft a first-round quarterback. I mean, I always say we live life in shades of gray.
Yep.
I mean, unless someone's got a terminal illness, like nothing is ever as good or as bad as you think. And social media is made for overreactions, hot takes, people wanting to throw stuff out there to garner conversation. The people that want Brock gone or that they don't want to pay Brock will be pining for him when the Niners are in QB purgatory for the next decade. And the whole Shanahan thing, they're a package deal. When Brock gets paid in the offseason, hopefully they do it in March so they can figure out what the salary cap hit is for 2025 and 2026 and figure out, can they fit Greenlaw and Hufanga or just one? What other pieces can we bring back? How can we dip into free agency? At least $65 million in cap space in 2025. Not worried about that team, at least next year, falling off a cliff talent-wise. But you are going to have departures. The only one I could say for certain is Charvarius Ward. He's gone, not because of play, because they gave Debo money. Right? So it's going back just to the Brock narrative thing. Yes, understand the arm thing. Did he underthrow Kittle down the left sideline on a deep pass? Yes. Missed Pearsall on the post, underthrew it. And I don't know if he overcompensated or whatnot on the deep throw to Jennings on the right-hand side, but he did say, he's like, I thought we got the look that we wanted. I couldn't really see what was going on in the back end. So by his admission, he's got to be better. And he took full onus on that. They didn't realize that the safeties were rotating down that way. But I think what Brock needs to understand is if he or Kyle are falling in love with the drop back game, the bombs away Brock game, that may not play to his strengths, nor to the strengths of an offense that's missing a McCaffrey and an Ayuk, right? The checkdowns were there. You be patient. Know where you are in the game situationally, right? 9-6, they're at the 35 with about 5 minutes to go. You don't put the ball in harm's way to jeopardize the field goal. He did that against the Chiefs in the fourth quarter when they were down 2 scores, got hit through the pick in the end zone in a 2-score game. Chiefs take it down, went up 28-10, and then obviously put the game away. It's okay to be conservative or not be, playing with your sack hanging out and slapping people in the face with it when it's such a close game. And he's put the team on his back before in the playoffs. He put his team on the back in the Super Bowl, giving them the lead in the fourth quarter and overtime, leaving only for the defense to give the lead up or, to lose the game in overtime. Brock's not a top 7 quarterback, and he shouldn't get paid like a top 7 quarterback. He should get paid like, 6 to 12. But the market's the market. The market doesn't care what you or I think. The market and Brock's agent doesn't care what you, I, other fans, anybody else thinks. If you don't want the $700,000 house because you think it's worth $550,000, then go looking for a smaller house. Niners aren't looking for another quarterback. I hate anybody that's listening. Oh, they should draft a quarterback. It's not happening, guys. It's not. And
Kyle's staying put. He's not going anywhere. Brock Purdy's not going anywhere. So whatever delusion that you've been, falling victim to because of certain people that you watch, but these people have been saying this stuff for like 2 years now. It's not like it's just this year.
No.
I mean, eventually you're going to be right if you throw the same crap out there time and time again. Eventually your takes are going to hit, right? Like last year, everyone was, falling in love and thinking Brock was, this elite level quarterback and looked really good. We had a lot of weapons. We were also really, really healthy.
Yep.
And all that has something to do with it. But the overreaction of, we got to get rid of Brock and we got to get rid of Kyle. I saw a tweet today, man. I saw 2 tweets today that really pissed me off. It was a guy saying like, cut Brock, trade Bosa, fire Kyle Shanahan, and rebuild. That's their master plan for bringing the 49ers back to glory. But that would be the same person the following year if the coach doesn't work out, that would be asking for that coach to be fired as well. So it's
stupid fans.
Yeah, stupid fans. We have a lot of them.
I mean, even the Brock thing, and there are people out there that actually think the Niners have leverage, saying, well, Brock's just going to play out just let Brock play out his 4th year. They got the leverage. Morons, because it's not just one person, it's probably hundreds or thousands of people. Did Bosa play on his last year? Did Ayuk? Did Debo? I'm
not sure if
that? Warner did.
He's not thinking the guys need to play on their last year. As if
he's
the
organization not going to. And then, if you just turn it around and say, if you were Brock Purdy or his agent, would you play?
You don't owe your franchise that you were drafted to anything. They owe you.
On top of the fact that year, that 4th year, if they extend him and use that extra year, it's an extra year to spread the cap hit. It's an extra year that they can pile. And if they have a lot of cap space in 2025, they can front load his cap hit so it's not as much on the back end. There's mathematics involved. And I know math is hard. And I know common sense is hard for people. It's really hard. But if you're telling Brock to do something that you, Mr. Joe or Jane Schmo fan, would not do yourself if you were in his situation, and his agent would be like, oh, yeah, good advice. Not going to happen.
There's a man called Jason Hurley.
Yes.
I suggest you follow him. He is a
capologist. Yeah. Love him.
Do not listen to Grant. Do not listen to Hensley, Naylor, any of these guys with big platforms when it comes to the salary cap, because they don't know shit.
No, they're crap bags.
They don't know. Go listen to Jason Hurley. Go subscribe to his platform on social media. I think he really, I don't listen to anybody else. Anytime there's a random Ian Rappaport where he'll make a comment about the Niners cap being what it is, don't listen to those guys. They don't really know. Those guys are engagement farmers, and their job is to get engagement. Therefore, they farm it with inaccurate facts that the sheep don't actually go and check on because, it's Ian Rappaport, so we got to walt and make sure that, he says what he says is gold and whatever he says is true. It's no, it's not really always the case.
Well, there was someone I was conversing with on X earlier. Same thing, just talking about the cap, and said how you got to get rid of Brock because he's going to have no talent next year. And when you pay him, okay. And I just asked, do you know the Niners cap situation next year? Came back with some sort of a wishy-washy answer. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm actually just curious. Do you know the Niners cap situation next year? He's like, well, what? And then the response came back whatever you see on, at least he knew the websites, whatever you see on Over the Cap or Spotrac probably isn't right, because in a couple months, we're going to be reading stuff that the Niners are $20 million over the cap. And I'm like, bro, hold on. You're quoting now two websites, very reputable, that are both saying the Niners have $65 million in cap space next year. And you're going to, based on your emotions and lack of common sense, say like that's just going to go away. And when the Niners start the season, because I have my dumb fan voice, and it's like the Northeast meathead, guinea tea wearing, knuckle drag, like, come on, bro. They're not going to have any cap space, bro. That's what, like, I'm going to go outside and cut some lawns and throw down some mulch. Like, that's what I'm going to do, bro. Like, that's like what these mouth breathing fans are. And we're all Niner fans, brethren, sister, and whatever. Like, we're on the same team, but the train of thought on, and I'm not batting 1,000 with my takes. I'm certainly not. I think my batting average is okay. I'd make a pretty good baseball player given my batting, or a very good baseball player given my batting average. But it's so dangerous. It's when people get their news, their information solely from social media, and there's no fact checking or no anything, and they just run with it and it snowballs. It's so dangerous. And then you get into your echo chambers of Brock's bad, Kyle's bad, Grant Cohn good, Jesse, like, then it just becomes a complete crap show. But the Niners, at least for 2025, they got some work to do in 2026, are in good shape,
Yeah.
to field a very talented team.
I think the Niners are going to, a lot of people have talked about it. You're going to get a 4th place schedule.
Oh, love it.
So the Niners are going to get a lot of gimmies. And I mean, they really got to hit, they really got to win them next year, especially if they get a 4th place schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they're going to get at least a top 15 pick, hopefully. You know,
which will go for the quarterback, obviously.
Yeah. We're drafting a quarterback. Sometimes there's a couple indications of how to know when somebody's a complete tardo when they're tweeting stuff. It's either their profile picture is done, they don't have one. Okay. Their English is really, really bad. Or the person that they follow and constantly retweet and try to get attention from is of the people that we and you always talk about.
Yes.
I saw a tweet yesterday, and there's some sad ass people out there. So it's Brock Purdy's Jimmy Garoppolo's brother, right?
I saw this, yeah.
Tweeting about Kyle being a guru. And of course the guy tags the Three Stooges and like, look at me, look at my amazing take. Ain't I great? And I was just like, that is the 49ers fan base in a nutshell, who, you know, the ones that have no brain and are sheep, and they believe everything they see on social media.
And McVay put up 12 points. That's what I'm saying. Like, Sean McVay put up 12 points. Like, where was the innovative offensive mastermind that lit up the Bills yesterday? Like, it's whatever you want to throw at Kyle in terms of how bad the offense was yesterday. You have to throw about 80 to 85% of that at McVay also, because that Rams offense was nothing to write home about.
Yeah, it was that was a rough game to watch. I mean, if you really think about it, it was raining really, really hard. You couldn't get anything going in the run game on either side.
No,
the quarterbacks were both missing, left and right. Brock actually had a better statistical line in the rain, more than Stafford early on in the game. Yeah.
And Ahkello Witherspoon actually played good. Like, where did that come from?
He was motivated.
Like, come on. Like,
he will never play that the rest of the season. That was a one-off game. But I mean, look at the conditions he was playing in, and look at the guys that they were throwing at him to go up at him with. I think Brandon Ayuk would have smoked his tits if he had a chance. Yeah.
The thing that was, like, I think a little bit infuriating was, other than the Debo drop, the big Debo drop 3-3, and he would have gotten into the end zone, it would have been 10-3. Would it have changed the outcome of the game? I don't know. The whole butterfly effect thing, we will never, ever know. But points were at a premium, and touchdowns were very hard to come by. That would have certainly helped. And Kyle drew up a beautiful man beater. Debo makes that catch. Juwan Jennings is coming from the other side, the left side, would have blocked the safety. He had a clear path into the end zone. It's just odd how, at least, forget maybe how Kyle's drawing it up, but what Brock is choosing, that he's choosing in terms of man beaters, one-on-one deep shots, right? Like, the bread and butter of the Niners passing game is still the short to intermediate passing game. So where are the crosses, the tunnel screens, the semi-pick plays? I would have, if the Rams were going to play that much man, I would have crossed them and in to death until they got out of it and free up one of your receivers, tight end, fullback, running back. on maybe some of the edges or near the hash marks just to get rub routes, just to get somebody open versus it being a foot race, because no one on the Niners offense they put out there is going to win a foot race. Pearsall, like, I still don't know what Pearsall is, right?
Don't either.
Is he a possession receiver? Can he run? Is he a good route runner? Like, I want to say all of the above, but I haven't seen him. What is that now? It's one catch the last 4 games. I mean, so I don't know what he is. I think Cowing could take the top off of defense, but again, Kyle's got some sort of aversion to putting a different element on the field.
He's got a reverse hard on for the guy for some reason. He just would, for whatever reason, the kid. I feel bad for the kid because he looks completely lost on special teams as a punt returner. It's sad to watch.
It doesn't
He looks like a guy that just doesn't want to fumble. That's essentially what he looks like to me.
Yes.
He's like one move and a dive, one move and a dive. That's all you ever see. One move and a dive. He's always diving and falling forward, diving and falling forward. You never see him really like say, like, I'm going to take this up the left side and then cut it back really hard against up the middle and see if I can. Nope. I don't blame him because he must be in some proverbial doghouse already. You know, Kyle decides that he doesn't trust somebody, and then, you know, they make one mistake and then you'll never see him on the field the rest of the season. You know, Jacob Cowing being one of them. It's hard for me to say what I think about Ricky Pearsall, man, because of what happened this season. I really don't. I want to give him a pass.
I do.
I hate to be that guy because I'm never a guy that gives a pass, but I almost want to say come back fresh next year in really good shape, with another good offseason program together and whatever, and then see what we got. It's hard for me to just say, yeah, he sucks. He's a bust. There's a guy on TikTok named Sack Francisco, and all his content is based around 49ers should have drafted an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And he sucks. Pearsall sucks. Like, anytime he makes content, that's always kind of like the overarching theme. And I kind of refuse to go down that rabbit hole yet. But no, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, no, he's certainly not a bust. Like, and he does get, there needs to be some grace given and a pass to a certain extent for, you know, what he went through. And did he miss, was it 4 games or 6 games? I forget when he was activated. Obviously it hasn't been a full season, but even watching the games, independent of him not getting many targets or 1 reception over the past 4 games, whatever the stats are, I still just want to understand, like, he's been at enough practices since coming back to the team, practices, games, etc., that watching the games, I'm just curious what Shanahan thinks he does well, right? Like right now, and whatever a rookie does well in year 1, they'll do better in year 2 and work on some of their shortcomings. I get it, but I'm wondering, you know, where he's playing now. Is he technically their slot receiver, or they're keeping, you know, Jennings out? I mean, I know they move pieces around, I get it, but I'm just curious in terms of the different skill sets that people bring. So Jennings is a big possession receiver. Debo is the gadget guy. Kittle's the most dependable receiver they have. Conley doesn't play. Cowing doesn't play. I like, what are we labeling Pearsall as? Pearsall is the enigma. Like, is that it? Like the what? Like that. And that's just what I'm curious to see if he can carve that future rollout in the next, forget the next 3 games. Let's let him have a good quarter. Let's like start out having a good quarter.
Instead of forcing the ball to Debo when it's obvious that Debo's best days are way behind him. I mean, it's not even a guess anymore. It's okay to admit that a guy did well for your organization in a very small window and played some of his best football before he got paid and put his body on the line for your franchise. You can say all those things and then also say that it looks like I've told people this. I was telling a guy at work, they're like, what's with Debo? And I was like, have you ever heard the term in boxing when a guy says he just doesn't have the fighting guts anymore? And people are like, what does that mean? It means that they don't have the guts to stand in front of somebody and let them pound on them like they used to. I just don't think Debo physically or mentally or spiritually has that in him anymore. I feel like some guys have a longer shelf. Like Kittle has found a way to keep himself healthier or doing things in the offseason with his body because he plays just as physical of a brand of football, but has kind of almost had like a second second half of his, or can't say second half of his career, but he's had a little bit of a resurgence.
Yes.
Okay, and there has to be something about what he does. Kittle also cares a ton about football,
Oh yeah.
and he still has a lot of natural skills still left. He's pretty fast. I never realized how fast Kittle actually is. He doesn't really run routes fast per se, but after the catch, he's kind of has that Jerry Rice thing where like they don't clock fast, but they play fast, and that's kind of
He's
where I see
starting to
Kittle.
rumble. He's
Yeah,
starting to rumble. Chris Berman would have loved calling some highlights.
stumbling, bumbling. Yeah, that one. I just think Debo. I just he looks cooked, bro. I don't think I don't mean that in a malicious way when I say he's cooked. He just doesn't. It looks like, I mean, like that. I don't know if he's mentally into the game anymore either. He looks like a guy that, he's getting yelled at by Brock Purdy to get in the right place on
Yeah.
offense. He's bumping into the running back. Like he doesn't seem like, not only is he physically struggling, but he's mentally struggling or not prepared. So I really don't know what the 49ers are going to do with him. I just don't think he has any trade value, to be honest with you. And if you keep him here next year, like what does he really
Yeah.
do? What does he help you with? Like
It was so obvious, the force feeding of Debo. And
it's
they
so
force
bad.
fed him. But you look at the stat line, he only had 7 targets. It's crazy. It's not like he had 12 or 14, but right from the get-go, first play of the game was a slant on Witherspoon. On Witherspoon again, of all people, broke it up, and Witherspoon broke up the same slant on Jennings later on in the game. If we're gonna, so I can understand it from both sides, right? When Debo gets going, good things happen for the Niners. When Debo gets going against the Rams, good things happen for the Niners. So I can understand Kyle's mindset that even if you're not performing the way he has in the past, Debo is still one of your best offensive players, and almost like by default, one of your best offensive playmakers, because you're down Ayuk and McCaffrey and Mason, right? So there's not a lot to choose from. And Debo is still, if he can capture some lightning in a bottle, he can get them rolling. But it was obvious that they were force feeding it to him, right? I can understand why Kyle and Brock may want to, not to shut him up, but it's like Debo can still do some stuff. It's just a matter of, if teams are on to the Debo stuff, if we're all going to agree that Debo's not a great route runner, that Debo's not going to win a one-on-one go or post route, and if he's not following blocks well, or teams are keying in on him, and Debo in the backfield just doesn't work anymore with the handoffs, so he had like 2 for 3 yards, like, then what's his role next year, right? Well, but I think it's somewhat safe because Ayuk's not going to be ready till mid-October. Like, I think it's somewhat safe. But what they can use Debo as more is how they used McCaffrey in the backfield on passing downs. Like, let Debo run his routes from the backfield. Let him beat a linebacker or a safety versus splitting him out wide and having a corner on him. You don't do that exclusively. I think it would get old after a while, and somehow the D coordinator would adjust. But right now, if Debo's in the backfield, more than likely he's getting a handoff or getting the ball, or some sort of like a swing pass, which you could do, but let him actually run a McCaffrey choice route or a Texas route or something from the backfield. Give him more favorable matchups. And as far as if he's going to be on the team next year, I do want to reach out to Jason Hurley, because regardless if he's on the team or not next year, Debo's got a $33 million dead cap hit in 2026, a void year. And I want to ask Jason, because I've been doing the research, I can't figure it out. If Debo gets traded sometime in 2025, does that cap hit go away or diminish? Does the other team, take on some of that, or does it go away because he gets new I don't know. But I can see both paths. Debo staying because of Ayuk being hurt, or Debo going because they want to save $5 million more on the salary cap. It's not a huge savings, but if you're going to get Debo out of there, then you have to, like, again, it's like, what's the plan? You're going to trade Debo, then who are you going to bring in? And you don't have to trade him June 1st. You don't have to trade him March 1st. It could be training camp. People could be looking good in San Francisco. There could be an injury somewhere else. They offer you a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Okay, goodbye. Like, there's no rush. There's a rush.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
That hasn't been asked and I haven't brought it up. I just thought of it now. What if there's a top 5 player in the draft this year who happens to fall and happens to be a wide receiver who has a lot of dominant, like, elite traits I'm talking like a second coming of T.O. or Randy
Mhm.
Moss, that level player. Would you be mad if the Niners went a route that a lot of people don't want them to go and say, hell, this receiver could be the second coming of those guys? We're drafting receiver in the top 12. Would you be mad
Oof.
at that? How would they justify that to you? I don't think they ever could. Not to you, not to anybody, probably not to me. But like I watch old liners clips, especially when they had To and other elite receivers, and man, elite receivers make average
I know.
quarterbacks look great. Like
It
they make offenses look like the Rams from 1999. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I get that feeling like, well, maybe if we just had that one guy that we could just force throws up to and he could do all sorts of amazing things, would it be worth that type of pick? And then I think about it and I'm thinking, man, our offensive line is really bad and we could really use some
Yeah.
edge rush or another defensive tackle. It's that quickly goes away, but it has popped into my head like, what if? I don't know.
And they could have had, they still could have had Metcalf over Debo, right? Like they still could have drafted, and Metcalf might be blossoming into that To type of player, and Debo, a lot of wear and tear on the body for how physically like he's been playing, and even the Owens thing, right? They wound up drafting JJ Stokes in the first round in '95, and
Hmm.
they just lucked into To in the mid rounds out of Tennessee Chattanooga in '96. Like they had no idea what they were getting. If they went one, I don't think they ever would, right? Like I don't think they'd go receiver back to
It's
back
not a
years.
philosophically as an organization, they're not that or that.
No,
That's
just like
not
they
what they
wouldn't
do.
draft an O-line. I don't think they would draft a guard or even maybe a tackle in the top 15. I just don't think it would probably be D-line or D-end, I would imagine, is their first round pick. The only way it happens that they could justify it is if it's legitimately the best player available on their board. They draft him. They have some sort of a trade worked out like an hour or two later, even before that, to trade Debo to make it just a clean cut. So you're not having your wide receiver room so jammed. I just can't imagine it happening. If Pearsall wasn't drafted this past season, maybe. Looking at Ayuk getting hurt, looking at Debo looking a little bit slower, I could totally see it. Hard sell after making the Pearsall pick.
I think one thing we have to, at least I do, and I think a lot of 49ers have to do is need to allow guys to develop in the
Yeah.
National Football League. And
Yeah.
sometimes guys in their first year are not what they are in their third year. And you could
Mhm.
say, man, like some guys develop slowly. I mean, Debo was, you could say, ahead of Metcalf for a while as a player, and the Niners looked really good drafting Debo Samuel. But lately, in this, the last couple of years, Metcalf has looked like a better player, and that
Mhm.
just happens sometimes. Depends on the offense that's run. It depends on what kind of philosophy you have as far as getting guys the ball, and what is the offense predicated on? Is it running? Is it whatever? And he's had like a can't even say a resurgence. I just think he's finally come into his own as a player. Um, and I feel like you're right with the draft pick to Pearsall. I don't foresee them drafting a wide receiver anything but before round 4. I just don't
Yeah.
see it happening. You say that they don't draft offensive tackles within the top 12. I mean, after and this has nothing to do. I have a hard time really getting on Trent Williams after we found out what happened to a
Yeah.
child. Um, but we really have to look to the future of the left tackle of this
Yep.
franchise. Because if Brock's not going anywhere and Kyle's not going anywhere, we got to get a left tackle that's going to protect him. And we got to start thinking about that future. That future needs to be this draft. They need to do something where you draft a guy at right tackle who can have not officially, but he can be worked eventually to become the left tackle of the 49ers. This might be a year where they need to break protocol drafting
Mhm.
wise and go get a guy who is going to be, a mainstay on your roster for the next 12 to 14 years,
I don't think I think a lot of fans would be okay drafting an O lineman, a tackle, top 15. A lot of people are fed up with Colton McKivitz. I can understand that. A lot of people are fed up with Jake Brendel. They're not going to draft a center that high. There's just
Nope.
no way. And the whole, Trent Williams thing, how much longer is he going to play? I think the way that they mishandled his extension, they could have just guaranteed some money, didn't have to rework it in such a severe way. Same with McCaffrey. They could have given him like a, hey, $750,000 raise and we're going to guarantee 60% of your salary instead of versus what they did. I just didn't think that was smart business. But very quietly, Jalen Moore, the past 4 games has played really well. So he's not out of the running in terms of a tackle option, not the tackle of the future, not the heir apparent, but a tackle option. And I think there'd be a large number of fans if they went tackle early, they'd be okay with that. And I think this is a draft where the Niners need to draft 2 offensive linemen. They need to draft a tackle. I think they really should draft a tackle. They really should. I mean, they could bring Jalen Moore back the first day of free agency and be like, all right, we're good. Got our 3 tackles.
Like when they drafted lose Upati and I forget the other guy.
What's his face from Rutgers, the tackle. Like I'm blanking on his name too.
I know you.
And he tried to come back like a little bit later on with the Niners, but and they need to draft an interior lineman because I think Aaron Banks is going to be gone. If you're betting on Ben Barch to be the left guard, that's cool. It's a high ankle sprain. It wasn't anything catastrophic, but someone that can maybe be the interior, like what Feliciano was, 32 years old, a center guard type of person. I mean, I think 2 offensive linemen drafted this year. Maybe you bring one in free agency, revamp that room a little bit. I would be totally cool with, but it's going to be D line or DN, D tackle or DN in the first. Like you could almost bet money on it, or safety if they lose Hufanga.
Free agency wise, because it's definitely something to think about. Think the Niners make any really solid moves in free agency this coming off season? I mean, maybe another pass rusher
outside the organization. You mean bringing someone? Yeah. It's a really good question. I mean, Floyd very quietly 8.5 sacks this season. Yetur had the 3 sacks, NFC Defensive Player of the Week or whatever it was.
I would keep both of them and add to it. I really do believe.
Yeah. I mean, they could release them and, you could save half of that $10 million each that they're getting annually, but I don't think there's a reason that you do it. I wonder if the evolution next year is Yetur and Bosa are the DNs on first downs or whatever, and then third down, Yetur moves inside, which he does, and then Floyd winds up becoming like your Von Miller or your third down, just a pass rusher, just because he's going to be 33 years old. You want to save some of the wear and tear. We'll see what happens with Sam O. You got Drake Jackson coming back. I think Robert Beal is just the guy, so they can definitely go DN in the draft and free agency. In terms of a big swing, I've been doing a lot of college mock draft stuff just because it's a good way to spend 10, 15 minutes. It helps me get to know the prospects a little bit more. But in terms of who free agents are, I think the Niners have one moderate swing in them. Like, I don't think they're going to bring in a Hargrave level type of person. And I was okay with the 2-for-1 approach, right? They brought 2 D tackles in. They let Armstead go. So it was Collins, Elliott, Armstead's gone. They didn't really let anyone go at DN, but instead of buying one $20 million DN, they bought 2 $10 million DNs. All right, that's fine. Because now
I think a lot of people, including myself, were of the mindset that was the best course of action in the offseason. And the fact that they actually went and did that, already having Hargrave on the roster, it just seemed like the Niners got themselves, a really good rotation of defensive tackles. And of course, Hargrave, out for the year, yada, yada, yada. And then that was the end of that. Speaking of Hargrave, there was some roster movement where his cap hit went from 24 million down to about 10 million. A lot of people think he's going to be a post-June cut, including yourself. But then there's been some talk based on some other workings or numbers, when people have looked into it, that he could actually be returning.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that? Because you've been pretty adamant, and I have too, that he was a miss as a free agent, that he got his money and essentially was like, yeah, I'm good. Any chance that he reworks and comes back, or is this a full post June 1st, see ya, bye-bye?
Well, they essentially cut his base salary from like 20 million or whatever down to 2.1. So they're saving 18-ish million dollars on the cap, which when you could think about it this way, if they didn't do that and designated him a post June 1st cap cut in the off season, they would have had to carry his cap hit up until June 2nd, and then it gets wiped off the books. So what they did early was actually save that money. They got rid of that money now so they can use it in free agency. And I think that does allow an avenue for him to come back. But, and another reason to reach out to Mr. Jason Hurley, now he has if he's under contract until 2026. Now his 2026 cap hit is close to $30 million. So if Hargrave gets released as a June 1st cap cut, which would only save another $3 million in this day and age, what is that going to get you? A number 3 quarterback? Or like, I guess Jordan Mason,
a kicker.
Yeah. Another kick, another punter. My long-winded way of answering the question is, because we've been talking about Debo or Hargrave. I can't imagine them moving on from both, because I think the 2026 financials are horrid with that. But Jason Hurley, follow him, everybody. If you don't, knows more than me. I think I may reach out to him on Twitter just to kind of break down about, like, what if Debo gets traded? What happens in 2026? What if Hargrave gets June 1st? What happens in 2026? Because you can't have two gaping $25+ million cap hits for players that are no longer on your team. That's a no-no.
You saw Bosa's, he said that, these last 3 games or 4 games, I think it's 3, it should be all about, if you're healthy, you play. And we want to see, he sounds like a guy, as much as I get on him, he's starting to sound like a leader when he said, I want to see people who actually want to be here. The frustration that I think this is the first time that I've ever seen him, because he's always that kind of laissez-faire, doesn't really get overly pissed. I think what happened yesterday with that whole freaking Devondre Campbell thing, mixed with the shitty season and his injury, I liked what I heard in just that little blip when he says, we're going to figure out guys who, like, essentially, if you want to be here, great. If you want, like, get the out of here. Like, we don't care. And I'm glad he said that. It was like this, all of a sudden I felt this like warm sensation of like, okay, I kind of like this guy now. I've been tough on him. He come off sometimes like he doesn't care, but that's, I don't know. What's your take? Are you kind of in the same mindset of like, get some guys and put some guys in the lineup, like Cowing, for instance? Let's see what he can do.
No, I'm glad that he said that. And I guess he's 100% or close to it that he played. There were no setbacks per Kyle. I guess he's going to play the next 3 games. But then it also begs to the whole, I know Kyle came back and said, like, we want to bring the same effort the next 3 games that we brought to Chicago and for the Rams. Obviously, execution against the Rams needs to be better, but the effort, at least on the defensive side of the ball for 3 quarters, can't really be questioned. But with 3 games remaining, I mean, do you try to bring Trent Williams back? I mean, when they showed the actual Trent Williams in the box, not the dude that was wearing the gray hoodie that they showed, how that was, I still don't even know who that was.
2 things happened in that broadcast. I said that was Trent Williams. And then Kirk Herbstreit says, oh, Brock doesn't really have any issues. He looks like he's doing really good out there. He's got really big hands. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
What? No.
I mean, so when they actually showed the real Trent Williams, he was up in one of the suites in a box, and he had his scooter next to him. So if he's using that to get around, which means he probably still can't walk that well. They do have 9 days before Miami, but why not? Like, if you shut him down, I think it would be actually kind of smart. Like, do you shut Dre down, or is Dre auditioning for his next team? If Bosa has a setback in practice this week, do you shut him down? Because the games don't matter as much as protecting your players and keeping everyone as healthy as possible going into next training camp. Now, Bosa came out and said what he said, which I think, like you said, was a very leadership type of thing to say. So unless he really can't go, he's probably going to play. And you got Hufanga playing with the club, which, resulted in him not getting interception.
Looks really silly. That thing looks like the ass end of a baseball bat. That's essentially what it looks like.
For a linebacker to do it, or a D lineman, you can maybe understand, or an O lineman, you can understand it. An O lineman would be great because you can't hold with that hand. But for someone in the secondary to play with a club, you saw the exact reason why you shouldn't be playing with a club.
But I think that has more. I think that speaks more to Jair Brown. In the viewpoint of the 49ers, how much he's taken a step back. I said this last night, and I know my emotions were kind of caught up, but I think the Niners would do themselves no favors by letting either or both of those guys going next year. You got to keep at least one. If you're going to keep one, I really, 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 I just can't say Dre Green. I just can't see Dre Greenlaw leaving this team in free agency. I don't see it happening. He's one of your core pieces. Fred Warner is not the same player when Dre Greenlaw's not in there. He's just not. He started really well this season. Here's another guy. We were talking at the outset of the stream when we talked about Devondre Campbell, another guy who's put it all on the line with a fractured ankle, and then you got bitch boy freaking quitting on his team at halftime because his lady part's hurt, because he essentially got told something that he already knew in the beginning of the season when they signed him, and then it came to fruition, and now all of a sudden you're in your feelings about it. Fred Warner doing what he's been doing, again, another reason, like, do right by Fred Warner, a guy who's been playing all year hurt, by bringing back his buddy. Bring back Robin to Batman, you know what I mean? Or vice versa.
I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be two. I wonder how they view the positions. Do they view a running mate to Warner as more important to the defense than a safety who has good instincts, pretty good tackler, but can't cover at all? Like they need, I would almost say you could bring Dre back and then you have to find yourself a center fielder, right?
Yeah, because they have essentially three safeties that do the same thing.
They do, exactly, right? Jair does neither well. At least Mustafa's a good tackler, unless he's tackling Mahomes. But he also had a very good coverage grade for like the first 10 weeks of the season, a really good one. Hufanga was the one that at the end of the game, the third down conversion to the tight end that nobody covered. That was Hufanga's miscommunication. Not to say that's the reason that you get rid of him. He is opportunistic. He is a playmaker, but I think the Niners do, and I'm not sure how much you could even say, like, what do Warner and Greenlaw do differently? Warner's more coverage, kind of a linebacker. Greenlaw's, maybe the bigger hitter, plays a little bit more on the edge, out of control. I would be, as I'm maybe talking myself into it, I would maybe let Huff walk if you can find someone that can actually be a little bit more of a coverage type of safety, whether you double dip, draft, and free agency.
What about Huff? Because he's been hurt so much the last 2 years, I think his cap number is going down precipitously. I think the Niners can bring him back this year. I really do. And I think I think they do. I think they bring him back on a team-friendly deal because he's been hurt so much. Me and my brother were talking about that. He's a Dolphins fan. He's like, Huff, he goes, your team looks different when he's in there. And I said, he's Jared. He looks great. He can't stay healthy.
Yep.
I said he's a little bit of a gambler in coverage. He's real good against the run most of the time. He made a solid tackle last night, and I was just like, God, I missed that. Him and on the run game, dude. It was like, where's this been all year, right?
Team friendly.
I'm getting sentimental, and you can't.
No, and it's listen. The season's winding down. Like, we're going to be waxing poetic, 3 weeks from now when the season's over and there's no more Niner football. Team friendly deals are good and they make a lot of sense. That's assuming that he has no other options. And Greenlaw, because whatever other options they have, if it's going to be a team like, the Patriots are slated to have like over $100 million in cap space and they're bereft of talent everywhere. If they have no other offer, if they have no other offers or something is really close, like a lot of another team that they're interested in just wants to do a 1-year prove it deal to prove you can stay healthy. And if everything's going well by November 1st, we'll re-sign you long-term. There's a lot of, as good as $65 million in cap space sounds, that's not taking Brock into account yet, which still may only be about $20 to $25 million that first year, not terrible if they go the Trevor Lawrence model. But there are going to be some decisions. And I think I said it last time with you and James, like, this is where someone like John Lynch and his scouting department and other assistant general managers or whatnot, they're going to make their money trying to get another good draft class and trying to bring in moderately priced free agents to complement what this team wants to do and fill some holes. That's why, like, if they have a swing in them outside the organization, free agent wise, maybe it's just one, like a Leonard Floyd type of swing. Like, I think that's probably where their cap might be, a 10, 12-ish average annual value type of player. And if it is that safety, like, who was it Justin Simmons, or who was like the hot to trot safety of the Broncos? I forgot where he went now, but like, someone that could be more of a true center fielder, then you kind of got that under wraps. And if Mustafa stays healthy, or they can look at a third cornerback, right? Ward's gone. So if you have Demo and Renardo Green as your starters, who do you trust as number 3? Is it someone that you're going to bring back? Is it a draft pick? Is it a free agent? Interesting times are coming. But what I want to go into in my next show is people still need to remember all the talent that is absolutely coming back. And when you rattle off the names, they got to get better with depth. But when you have Ayuk returning healthy and McCaffrey and Kittle and Warner and Bosa and Green and Demo, and if Juice return, like there's still a lot. And if you want to call it top heavy, that's okay. But if these top heavy players can stay healthy and they get some bump from their mid-level players and add a little bit of depth, like this is still a very talented roster. Like it's not like they're losing.
And then you add to that a 4th place schedule next year.
I know, like it's
sad to say, but they could. It's been a tough season, man. It's been tough to stomach. We as fans, I think you and me, maybe I've known you probably about 2 months. I think we all saw. I think we all saw that coming after the Super Bowl last year. There was just that feeling like to have that to get all that and then make another run again. It was just going to be next to impossible.
But
and then we had no idea what we had coming with the deaths and the injuries and shootings and all that stuff.
That's why the way things have gone, let's just say from a record standpoint, is very surprising. From a Super Bowl hangover standpoint, you want to throw the Madden curse in there, you want to throw all the other ridiculous stuff that happened to the Niners in there. It's all additive. But after however many years of grinding and almost getting there and losing and stuff,
they played an extra
you could see it.
Essentially.
You could see it. I mean, it's not affecting people are going to say, well, it's not affecting the Chiefs. It's like, all right, well, they got a generational quarterback and the best coach in the league and the best defensive coordinator in the league. Like that's a different type of thing. So it's not surprising if this team needs like a hard, not even, we'll call it a reset rest, just to give everybody on the team. There's so many people battling with injuries. And I don't know, I wasn't on Twitter in 2020 after the COVID year, how many people were on the team, on Kyle, on Jimmy, on whatever, for going to the Super Bowl and then 6-10. Well, they went to the Super Bowl, they're 6-8, and their injury situation is worse than the COVID year. So if anyone out there gave Kyle or the team's grace or a pass then I feel like you have to do it now, because in some, it's been more of a train wreck than COVID ever was.
I see the last 3 games. I could see them losing all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And finishing with a 6-11 record would essentially, I would assume, that would give them a top 10 pick. I would have to assume.
Very well.
I mean, if that's the case, then you could do some work. If you're a top 10, you could trade out of the top 10 and pick up another first rounder, trading back to say like 17, and then have somebody at like 31. And then all of a sudden you can 2 birds with 1 stone. You can get an offensive tackle and an edge guy, or you could get 2 defensive line pieces, or you can get a generational safety and an edge piece. Like all those things. I'm not usually, like I said, I'm not a half guy optimist, half full, but for some reason, just based on everything going on in my own personal life, the thing with my content and everything, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be at least, I'll go on with Al. I'm going to try to be the complete opposite than what he's been used to the last like 2 months that I've known you. So I'm kind of trying to look at it like that. I don't know. See.
Listen, it's the off season's going to be here pretty quickly. We're going to get into draft season and free agents and rumblings on who the Niners are going to sign or looking at. This football season flew by. They all do. And then it's like a slow march until we get into, training camp and stuff like that again. I'm excited to see what the next iteration of this 49ers team and roster looks like, because it's not going to be it's not like the Cleveland Indians from the movie Major League, where, people are looking through the paper and going like, who are these effing guys? Like, no one has a clue, but they're bringing back so many familiar faces, so many star players, all pros, Pro Bowlers, that they need to fill some holes and supplement and get some depth. Like
get healthy, get some rest.
The fall of the Niners is greatly exaggerated. The playoff and championship window has closed for this year. And I said earlier on my podcast, the window officially opens again in March. And I truly believe that. I'm not a homer. The window opens again in March. A lot of cap space. Bring in another, at least half of your draft class being okay. Bring in some free agents. Get rested. Get healthy.
Yeah, essentially, instead of playing to almost late March, they're done early January. So they're getting an extra months worth of rest before, instead of having. I mean, the Super Bowl is like second week in February,
Second week of yeah.
and then early March is free agency,
2
and
weeks
April's the
after that,
draft.
free agency starts, yeah.
It's
Gives
insane,
everybody a little
dude.
bit more time to work on the things that they need to work on. Listen, it
Kyle
sucks to
looks
not be
burnt.
everyone's gotta be burnt.
Don looks burnt.
Yeah.
It's
I love people that show pictures of Kyle about like, "Oh, he looks so tired," and they'll show a picture of him in, 2017 versus now. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I looked a lot younger 8 years ago too."
So did I. I didn't have a beard. I was skinnier by a lot. I feel like, with us at least, me and you and James on Monday, I would love to say that going forward into next year that I would like to see this continue. I don't know.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah,
1000%,
I
yeah.
really don't have much going on after the Mondays anymore. Things have changed in that aspect as far as like no locked in shows in the midweek anymore. It doesn't work. I tried my damnedest to make it work. Been really aggressive about it, but just that's the way things work out sometimes. So even I'm going to come back looking different next year with maybe a couple new co-hosts or maybe just doing the Monday thing with Alan James and then I don't know.
No,
So everything's going to
listen,
change.
I'm down to double dip on a Wednesday or Thursday
Maybe,
or Friday leading up to like whatever.
maybe
Always down to talk Niner stuff, man.
I'm trying not
Love
to
it.
get you burnt out on so you leave me too. So I'm
No,
trying
listen,
to
well, this past week for me doing it Monday on my stuff, Monday, Wednesday, and today felt like a lot, but that's also because I try to fit stuff in like, oh, I got a 40 minutes break or lunchtime. Let me go record downstairs since I work from home. The nighttime stuff's a breeze. Like, we started at like 9:30. So the, kids were asleep. My wife was in bed. No one's in the basement. Like this is a lot easier. When I try to fit my stuff in during the day, it turns into a little bit of a whirlwind. Yeah.
Yeah. And everything will be refreshed and different next year. To me, this has been for the first time in a long time, as far as like, I'm actually looking forward to kind of not doing anything on YouTube or, I don't get the views at all like any of the guys. It's been a pretty disappointing last couple of years, but I do it anyways just because I meet people and it's always fun. But even taking a little break from YouTube till maybe March and then maybe sometime again in the draft and then taking another break until training camp. I'm okay with that. I'm good. The last couple of years have been pretty balls to the wall, kind of just kept going.
Yeah.
Content. It's not going to be like that. I got other stuff going on too. So in a way, I think my life and maybe even yours, maybe after the season is going to kind of reflect what the Niners are going through. Take a little bit of a break, take a step back. And
It's
then we'll
okay.
see what
Take a
happens.
step back and breathe, man. Live to fight another day.
Yeah. But hey, that's going to do it for us. I will say that we'll see you. I don't know when we'll see you because we have a 10-day layoff until Miami. And I don't know how you feel about wanting to do any previews or even post games going forward, just based on what we're dealing with as a team. It might be a lot more of what we talked about today, a lot of talking about the future. So, but
yeah, well, no, let me know if we're gonna do Monday again or Monday plus. Since, like you said, we do have a big layoff until Miami, but I'm down for whatever. Just let me know.
Yeah, definitely. And I let James know tonight he couldn't do it. He said, but maybe later next week. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do a preview to Miami and then kind of reset after that. But everybody who was here tonight that actually came into the chat via like X or whatever, thanks a lot. Sorry for the really, really late start. My electronics have been betraying me lately. So everybody take care. For those of you who popped in that are friends of mine that listen to the stream, but don't actually watch just out of, being my friend, appreciate that. And me and Al will talk to you next time. Peace.